Good morning there. Today we're going to talk about landed costs. We're going to do a walkthrough of creating the estimates and showing how actuals get posted against those estimates. In previous videos, I've showed how to set up the cost charge, how to deal with allocations and all that kind of stuff. And so today what I want to do is just kind of walk through, create the trade operation, attach some purchase orders to it, and show how we can create the estimates and then how the actuals get posted to that. So having said that, the first thing we're going to do, landed cost exists in receipt accounting. So we'll go into receipt accounting, into the taskbar, hopefully. And it's down here in the bottom part of the taskbar. This is all the landed cost functionality. So we're going to go ahead and create a trade operation. So I have several trade operations out here. Setting a trade operation can be a bit tricky. I don't know how to say it other than that, but let's go ahead and create one from a template. So we're going to create from a template. We're going to say create from this template here, create the trade operation. You can put different templates, especially if you have different routes, different to from points, or however you're going to set up your landed cost. Remember, a trade operation is simply a bucket to be able to collect the cost, compare it to the actuals, and in a standard cost world, they actually create PPV against those charges if you set it up. In an average cost world, it'll average the estimates in and do some other fun stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start here with the trade operation. We're going to create from the template. And we're going to give it a name, just I want to be consistent in what I'm doing here. Whoops. Sorry, I have to change classes. Trade operation. You can set up routes ahead of time. I showed how to do this in different videos. So this is my Shanghai to San Francisco route. We're going to save that, and it brings in off the template. So at this point, I can also add other charges that might be specific to this that aren't on a template. So my charge business unit is US1 business unit. In this environment, I'm going to bring in some storage charges, right? Because we're going to have to store this along the way. This is going to be aggregate. I talked about the different allocation methods before. This is aggregate, meaning it's a simple price. It's going to be, let's say, $5,500 for that. I'm going to store that with my favorite supplier for this operation. Whoops, not Lease Supply, Lease Supplies. And their site. I have to tell it how I want to allocate this. I'm going to do it by quantity. There's different allocation, manual allocation factors. You'd have to set those in after you set this up. It's going to be equally, no, actually it's going to be by quantity, I'm sorry. And then it's going to be each. So once we have this set up, we can save it. We can add others if we wish, but we'll just go ahead and save and close this. Now we have 4 items here. I'm going to go ahead and save this at this point. Now you'll notice here that it's still in the draft mode. If I were to crash out of this right now, save it and close it, I would have to go into drafts and find it. It won't, it's really kind of weird how they set it up to find this. So I won't get out of this until I actually come up here and change the status to open. We'll show that in a minute. But first I have to make a couple other updates to this. And this relates to how accounts payable is going to associate the invoices for freight, insurance, and storage fees back to this trade operation. I have to create a code. And when you implement this, you have to think through what is a code that both the buyers and the accountants and the AP people are going to readily have available when they enter the invoices, when they set this up. So that's something that really needs to be thought through, and how do you want to set these codes up? And so what we do is we go into each line item and we'll do an edit. And it's down here at the bottom. It's called the charge reference. So I'm going to add a charge reference to this. This one is freight. So I'm going to go to freight. And I'm going to give it a value. Just for the simplicity of this walkthrough, I'm just going to call it F for freight to my China core trade operation. And I want it to automatically associate. You don't have to automatically associate. It just creates manual work later. So I'm all into automation, right? So save and next. This is my insurance. So same thing. We'll go through each one of these. Insurance. Save and next. The one I'm not going to set up is discount. So we're just going to go save and next and go to the storage. And this is my storage item. And now these charge reference names, how to set those up, again, that's in a different video that I showed previous to this. So I'm just kind of showing how all of this comes together. So I've created this value, which is a charge reference value, and we'll show here in a bit where that comes from. So we're going to save and close this. At this point, I'll resave it, and I'm going to update the status to open. And now it's in open, and we're going to save it again. Now we'll go save and close here. So, and we don't need that. So here in trade operations, I have some others that have been set up. I'm going to dump out of this and come back in to show the new one that we have. So here's the new one that we've set up, right? You notice some of these others are open and active. I have estimates against them. I have actuals against them. So we're going to kind of do the same thing here. So on these, if you highlight each one, it'll graphically show you what are my estimates, what are my actuals, and you can pictorially see how your variances are going and how your estimates are against these on this page. This one doesn't have anything yet, so we're just going to go ahead and go into it. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to associate the purchase orders that are going to be with this trade operation. So remember, trade operation is allocating expenses, air freight, sea freight, insurance, storage brokers, all those kinds of things to a group of purchase orders that are coming across the ocean. Maybe it's a container load. Maybe the charge reference might be the container number, something like that. So what we're doing is saying this group of purchase orders is going to carry in common this group of costs that I'm now allocating. So that's what landed cost is an allocation engine. So I'm going to go ahead and associate the purchase orders to this. I actually have a couple, or at least one purchase order here that I'm going to put on this US 164739. Search for that. There's my purchase order. We're going to save and close. And then down here at the bottom half of the screen, you can see that it brought in my purchase order 164739. It brought in each line. It's called the schedule, how many quantities, and then this is the value of that purchase order. So now it gives you something to allocate. And you'll also notice that my charge lines here now have a status of waiting. So anytime you want to add more purchase orders to this, either new purchase orders that you set up that are going to be part of this container, there's a couple steps we have to go through. So we're going to come over here to manage landed cost processes. There's 4 processes that run through this landed cost. They're called prepare PO, allocate charges, prepare invoice data, and associate to invoice. My recommendation is to set these up to run on a schedule in the background, so you don't always have to remember to run these processes along the way. So if purchasing is constantly creating purchase orders, the first thing you would want to run is prepare PO data. So any new purchase orders that have opened have, once this is run, and to run it, we just hit schedule process and submit. So now that this is running, that's going to go set up any new purchase orders to be able to be used in landed costs. Doesn't mean you're going to use them, but it means they're available to be used in landed costs. And you'll see down here, you can see that this is running. Obviously, you can also go into scheduled processes and see it run, but you won't see it by name. Let's see if I have that open, that you can see that. So here we are in scheduled process. It just says manage landed cost processor, but you're not sure which one's running, and it's finished. So we'll go back to where we were. So anytime you add purchase orders, you'll need to run this first. So again, running it as a scheduled process in the background on some periodic schedule, every hour, every 5 hours, once a day, whatever it is, based on your business needs. So then once we've associated the purchase orders to this, which is what we've done here, the next step is up here. We need to go into actions and allocate charges. So it's going to go based on the setup in each of these charge lines, whether it's a percentage, whether it's a fixed fee, whatever it is, and associate it based on these dollars and quantities. So we're going to go ahead and say allocate charges. Click OK. And see, now what it's done is gone out and based on, see, here's my $5,500 that I set up. So that's a fixed fee. These others are percentages or rates based on the PO. So so now my estimates are in place, right? And so estimates, if I add a purchase order to this, I can add purchase order down here at the bottom and do a reallocation. It'll update these estimates. So that's the first step. So I create a purchase order and I have put it into the system. Now, through the normal business process, the next step that's probably going to happen is that those POs will be received into inventory, which they have been done in this system. And so then this is where these landed processes come in again. So once the purchase orders are received, the second of these processes, called allocate charges, needs to be run. And again, just come here and we just do a scheduled process, submit it and run it. And then we can see down here that is going to be running. That was from when I ran it previously. So here, allocate charges. We can also go to scheduled process screen and see if it's run. It's running. So that'll be done in a second. So once this is run, then the next step that we can do. Now, the other thing that needs to be running in the background is you need to run your costing processes. And we'll show how to do a couple of those in a minute. But there are a series of 6 costed processes that should be running on some schedule in the background. They are transfer transactions from inventory to costing, transfer transactions from receiving to costing, transfer transactions from production to costing, and transfer costs with an S to cost management, and then create receipt distribution and create cost accounting distribution. So these should be running on a schedule in the background so that as purchase orders are received, those transactions automatically flow through the system so that landed costs can then work on them. So this is probably completed at this point. We can also check over here to make sure it's completed. It has. So what's going to happen now in the business process is that an invoice is going to come in for one of these expenses. So expenses can be things like freight, insurance, storage, whatever it is that we've set up. So now the invoices for these services start to show up. So to do that, we're going to go over into accounting and go into invoices. So this is accounts payable. We're going to create an accounts payable invoice for freight, let's say. That get a drink here. Wait for the spinning wheel of death. Okay, so my freight carrier happens to be United Parcel Company. And give it an invoice number. Just going to kind of go for $2,250. And now this system has it set up for tax. I'll have to deal with that in a minute. But what I'm going to do is create a miscellaneous invoice because it's not based on a PO. It's $2,250. And in the thing in accounts payable, you have to set up, you have to open up landed costs in here. You'll see this here. The way you open that up on the AP invoice line for the first time is you go to View, Columns, and go to the landed cost and check the two boxes. So this will make these appear on the screen. So since this is a landed cost invoice, I'm going to enable it for landed cost, and then I have to give it a charge reference. So if you remember, over here on this line for freight, we created a charge reference. And so this is what I was talking about. When you implement this, you have to decide what value am I going to use. It's easily recognizable by the people running landed costs and the people in accounts payable because they've got to use the same code. Okay, having said that, we'll come back here and I'm going to add a line to this. And it's going to be for freight. And I call this F China 4 because I wanted to make it easy on myself today. Okay, so that's my charge definition that I'm putting in here for this invoice. Click OK. So I've enabled it. This will change to show that I have put in the reference code. Now I know this is going to crap out on taxes, so let's go ahead and tell it to calculate taxes so I can put in the correct invoice amount. Then I'm going to go ahead and validate it. These are all steps in a normal accounts payable, setting up an invoice. Since it says validated, now I need to post this. If you don't post this, it's not going to be found over in landed cost. So I'm going to go ahead and post this to the ledger. It's for $2,463. I'll make a note of that. Okay. And then we'll save and close that. So we've set up the landed costs, we've associated the purchase orders, we've estimated the allocations that are going to come based on that, right? And now we've actually added an invoice in accounts payable. So this is where those background processes come in. There's a couple of them that we need to run here. So we'll pop over and do that. So the first scheduled process I'm going to run is called transfer cost to cost management. And we'll go search for it. There we go. Click OK. My US1 business unit. I'm going to use today as a cutoff and submit that. So this will take a minute or two to run. Okay, so that's now completed. And then the second process that needs to be running, we'll actually have to go take execute this, if you will, from the cost accounting screen, and it's called Create Cost Accounting Distributions, and which is right here, Create Cost Accounting Distributions. If you click a search, you'll see all the different processors. This is U.S. operations for us. So this is your basic inventory org processor that processes all the transactions into cost accounting. We're going to schedule this process and submit it. And then we can come back to scheduled processes here, and you'll see that it's running. And then we'll hold here for a second and wait for that to finish, and then I'll be back. Okay, so that has now finished. So going back to our landed costs. So at this point, we've entered the invoice and we've brought it into cost accounting as what all that exercise was. So again, set up your cost processes, set up your landed cost processes to run on a schedule in the background, so you don't have to worry so much about transactionally running these processes. But I just want to show you how they work. So there's two more processes that need to be run at this point, and these last two: prepare invoice data, meaning accounts payable invoice data, and then associate that invoice data to the trade operation. That's what the TO stands for. So we're going to go ahead and schedule this first one. And we'll pop over here, let that run. These run really quickly. There's not a lot of data that we're dealing with here. Completed. And then we're going to associate to invoices. Associate the trade operation to the invoice charges. Like that. And we'll see that one running here as well. And again, notice they just say manage landed cost processor, so you're not always sure which one's running. Succeeded. Okay. So now we come back over to the trade operation, and you'll notice that sometimes you'll get this allocation here, or this red flag. And so if that's the case, then a lot of times what you can do is just either come up here and say allocate charges, or click it, highlight it here and click it to make sure that those get associated properly. And then you'll notice once we've done that, now I have the actuals coming in here to landed costs. And what's nice about this at this point is here in the landing page, you also have this box up here that gives you kind of, it's kind of a billboard of things that are going on, whether there's unsuccessful allocation, things that need to be allocated, purchase orders that are, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of gives you a picture of different things you may need to worry about. So now that we've done this China 4, I can highlight it. And again, here I have my estimates in blue, my actuals in green. If my actuals actually exceed my trade, if we've set this up properly in cost accounting, and I showed how to do that in previous videos on how to associate a landed cost charge to a cost element. There's a mapping that you can do. Then you can get PPV off of this when you're in the standard cost world. If you're in an actual cost world or an average cost, actual cost, it will update the actual cost when you do estimates. It will update the average and actual cost when the actuals come in. So there's a lot of things here that happen in the background to make sure that these landed costs are now part of your total item cost. So that's the process. Creating our estimates based on the purchase orders, As the invoices come in, they can be associated to the trade operations, which again are just buckets that we're holding. I've seen this set up as maybe containers that are coming across, or maybe it's a shipment of multiple containers. You can do customs fees, brokerage fees, just all kinds of things that are associated with moving that product from your supplier to your warehouse of first landing. I will make this one statement before I finish, is that currently in the system, I cannot do landed costs on internal material transfers. I know that's functionality that a lot of you need. We have submitted ideas into the Idea Lab to deal with that. I know that's on their radar, but I have no idea when that will be coming. So hope this was helpful for you guys. Appreciate any comments. Look forward to hearing more from you guys. Thank you very much.